Welcome to the Business of Defense. I'm Rich Brady, your host and CEO at the Society of Defense Financial Management. SDFM proudly sponsors this podcast on Federal News Network. SDFM is the premier association of finance and accounting professionals who work in government and business in the defense sector. Our goal is to bring you inside the companies working to drive change in the defense sector, to hear directly from their business leaders, and to understand how they create value for their companies and their customers. My guest today is Reza Mahbod, founder and president of RMA Associates. RMA is a CPA firm at heart, but one that extends beyond the traditional role of an audit and consulting firm. Made up of a diverse team of certified professionals, they specialize in financial statement, information technology, and performance audits, while also performing audit remediation and internal control services. At a time of increased visibility in the federal budget and debt, federal agencies are under increased scrutiny to obtain and maintain clean audit opinions, particularly within the Department of Defense. RMA started with just 2 employees in 2009, and with a focus on determination, consistency, and resiliency over the last 15 years, they are helping federal agencies achieve their audit goals. Reza, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Rich.
So, Reza, this morning we at the Society of Defense Financial Management had one of our quarterly corporate breakfasts, and the topic today was the Marine Corps audit. As many people know, the Marine Corps achieved a clean audit opinion this last year, the first service to do so. As a CPA, I'd like to get your kind of initial thoughts on that, and what do you think the significance of that is?
Well, thank you for the opportunity. I'm glad to be here, and the fact that the Marine Corps was able to achieve a clean audit opinion is a significant milestone. And DOD has been trying to do this for 25 years. And finally, you've got a significant component that was able to get there. It's a starting point for the rest of the major components. A lot of it, I think, has to do with timing. If you allow sufficient time to get comfortable with the numbers, you can eventually get to a clean audit opinion. And I feel as though for the Marine Corps, they were able to figure out a way to provide the sufficient amount of time for the auditors to do the testing and management to get the financials in order to get that clean opinion.
Yeah, and a lot of the questions this morning revolved around the ability to sustain that audit opinion. I know you've worked with a lot of federal agencies, and we'll talk about that a little bit more, but what do you think are some of the key hurdles in sustaining an audit opinion after you have achieved one?
Well, the process is, so achieving one, you can get there with, I would say, brute force, just by getting comfortable with the numbers, doing a lot of substantive testing, providing the information over the numbers themselves to get to the beginning balances. But in order to sustain that and maintain it over year, the processes need to be in place and the controls need to be in place. That is a much harder thing to accomplish. It takes time. Internal controls have to be designed and implemented, then they have to be tested. So it's not going to be an easy thing to maintain that. However, a lot of it can be done, again, given sufficient amount of time. These audit opinions are due by November 15th. The federal year end is September 30th. That's only 45 days. Even public companies have more time than that. So if you allow more time, or you do the audit like they did with the Marine Corps over 2 years, then you can eventually get there through the brute force techniques I was talking about earlier. And then to maintain it, once you get some momentum going, you keep those controls in place, you implement those controls. It can be done. It can be done. There are other agencies as well. Like we audit the DoD OIG, and we issue our opinion in January. So right now, we're not meeting the November 15th deadline. And because of that time, we can get comfortable with the numbers. So I think that's one area that some other smaller entities like DoD IG have used is that the extended amount of time to get comfortable with their financial statements.
So we've gone technical really fast here on today's show. Let's take a step back if we can and go back to 2009 when you established RMA. Can you take us back to that point and talk a little bit about what led you to start your firm?
Well, I was actually just looking for my next job. So
that's always a good forcing function, right?
It was the 2008 financial crisis happened, and there was a company out there called Bearing Point, which used to be KPMG Consulting, and I was at Deloitte, and Deloitte decided to purchase Bearing Point. Bearing Point went on sale at a bargain price, and Deloitte had a small audit practice, and I was in that practice. And senior leadership said, we're going to buy Bearing Point, we're going to acquire Bearing Point. And our audits that we have, we just basically have one, is VA, Department of Veterans Affairs. We're going to go ahead and put that aside. We're not going to, we're going to pull out of it, and we're going to focus on consulting. And there was 4 of us in the audit group. They were kind of the leaders of the audit group. One became a big shot at GAO. He does the Yellow Book. I went and started pounding the pavement and talking to everybody I knew, and I'd been in the business since the mid-90s when all this CFO Act stuff was starting. And I ended up with helping 2 separate firms win 2 contracts. One was consulting audit remediation at the Coast Guard, and one was the audit of the VA. And so I couldn't have 2 jobs. So one of the companies said, well, why don't you just do a 1099? And there was a good friend of mine was a CPA. He said, wherever you go, I want to come also. So I said, do you mind if he comes with me? They said, yes, we could use the help. So I had 1 subcontract here at Coast Guard and 1 subcontract at VA doing the audit of the VA. So the firm kind of started that way. After 1 year, one of the contracts went away. I thought it wasn't going to work out. But I doubled down and I said, you know what, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to give it all I've got. And I started really putting everything I had into the company because I was fearful that it wasn't going to work. And a couple of miracles happened, I would say. Some really amazing things kind of happened. The stars aligned, and we got our first 2 prime contracts. September 30th, 2013. I remember it very well. I was driving in my car, and I looked at my email, which you're not supposed to do, and I saw that we had won 2 contracts, and I literally almost broke down in tears. It was just a very big, it was a hard 4 or 5 years to get to that point. And then once we started rolling and things started going, it kind of a snowball effect, and the company continued to grow, we continued to win, and we just learned a lot. The firm learned a lot as a whole. I was able to get some really, really good people around me, and we as a team have just improved and continuously improved. And now we're kind of considered I would say we're a big fish in a small pond, because we're still considered a small business, but we're pretty well known, and we have a significant amount of contracts. So we're pushing not being a small business soon. So kind of that's how it happened. I wasn't trying to go out there and start a company. I was just, what am I going to do now type of thing. And it ended up that it turned into what it is right now, and we're continuing to move forward with it.
Yeah, a lot of people that we talk to, or a lot of people think that you start a business, you've got this grand strategy laid out over 15 or 20 years of how you're going to grow, but a lot of time it's more of an emergent strategy. What comes up at that time? What opportunities present themselves? You mentioned also that a miracle or a couple miracles happen. But I've also heard people say that you make your own luck, and it sounds like there was a lot of hard work that went into winning those contracts. So it wasn't as though you weren't doing anything. You really had to pound the pavement to get those contracts as well.
Right. The one quality that I have, and I think it's based on. I used to do these Ironman triathlons. I used to do these other things that were just, a lot of people can't do them, right? And for me, it was just, there was so much failure. Those first 4 or 5 years, there was constant failure. We did so many proposals, and we kept losing, and every time we learned, right? We, the organization, learned. And I remember my wife and my mom, both of them were saying, how can you continue doing this? There's so much failure going on. And and then I just kept going, and that's me as a person, is I just show up to work every single day. I've taken 2 sick days in my career. I've been working for 30 years. 2 sick days. I had strep throat. And
we'll give you a pass on that one.
And I'm very consistent. And so even when I get knocked down, or we get knocked down, the organization, or something bad happens, I still show up the next day. And I think that is what's required if you want to start a company, that you just have to be able to just keep going, and even if it's a bad day or something really bad happens, you just show up the next day and keep moving forward. So that, by doing that, then I think when a miracle does happen, you're there.
Right.
So you're there to take advantage of the miracle. I'm reiterating what you said, but yes, that's absolutely right.
So you've worked now with, I think, over 65 federal agencies customers. You've probably honed your 30-second pitch pretty well. Can you give us that? Can you just explain in layman's terms what RMA does when you're sitting in front of a potential customer? How do you describe what you do and really what your value proposition is?
Well, you did an excellent job doing that earlier this morning. That was wonderful. But you know what we do really is it's about relationships, and we listen. So we listen to our clients, our customers, and we pay attention to what they are saying and what they expect and what they want, and then we deliver that, right? So it's not that complicated. A lot of times I'll see vendors or service providers, they're not really listening. They're doing what they want to do. They're not doing what the customer wants them to do. So, you know, that I think is extremely important. Being responsive, I think people hate being ignored. So every single day, I get about 300 emails per day. Before I go to bed at night, my inbox is down to almost zero. Every day, I either file them or I respond, or if it's spam, I delete. But I'm very responsive, and we train our folks to be the same way, very responsive to our customers, to our constituents. Listen very carefully to what they're saying and asking, and then deliver that. Another thing I think that we do very well is we manage expectations. And so if something is due, we deliver it on that date. If we can't, in advance, we say, hey, we want to reset your expectations. We're not going to be able to make it because of this, that, and the other thing. However, if it's okay with you, we'll deliver at this time. If you do that with people, I find generally they're okay. Now, you don't want to reset expectations too many times, but the worst thing to do is just not deliver. Right. Something's due, and I just don't deliver. I'm supposed to meet Rich here, I just don't show up. That's not going to work, right? You'll never invite me again. So I think that's what we bring to the table. To answer your question, is we bring the very conscientious, focused delivery to our customers.
Sounds like your customers are recognizing that as well. I hear a lot of people saying the government customers can be somewhat fickle. When things go into a contracting office to be awarded, sometimes they're not aware of all the past performance and everything. But it sounds like that from what you're saying, that federal customers do recognize that. They do recognize the responsiveness, the attentiveness to their needs.
I think so, yeah. The federal customers are extremely intelligent people, and their attention to detail, and they're the clients, they're the customers. So, they talk amongst themselves, and I think they realize, this firm brings this firm brings that, and then for us, it's led to 65 clients. We have a very diverse portfolio, if you will. If it was a stock portfolio, it would be extremely diverse. We have a lot of clients within DoD, Intel, within law enforcement, within civilian. So we cover a broad range of the federal government. So I think our past performances, they call them CPARs, they're very good. We have some outstandings, we have a lot of very good, very few satisfactory. That's not, you want very good or outstanding or exceptional, I think it is. And we don't have any bad ones as of now. So when the customers see that, or they talk amongst themselves, that ideally would lead to growth of the business, which is good for our people, and it's also good for the customers themselves.
You are listening to The Business of Defense with my guest, Reza Mahbod, President of RMA Associates. We'll be right back. Welcome back to The Business of Defense, sponsored by the Society of Defense Financial Management on Federal News Network. I'm talking with Reza Mahbod, founder and president of RMA Associates. Quality management is a top priority at RMA. His company has achieved ISO 9001 certification, which demonstrates their commitment to delivering the best possible service to their clients. It takes a unique company culture to achieve this. I look forward to hearing the leadership and management mindset, including Reza's own experience as an endurance athlete. to shape and model the internal culture to deliver financial results and year-over-year growth rates. Reza, so let's jump right back. You mentioned that you talked about how you started RMA, but can you go back a little bit further and talk about your background in the federal sector? Did you always work in the federal sector, or did you come via another route?
So I graduated college in 1994. And for 2 years, I worked at these two firms that are no longer, they've been acquired. And then I was doing a lot of number crunching. I was doing tax returns. I was doing really small audits. I was doing reviews. I was just a lot of straight up accounting work. And I was never really a numbers guy. And a friend of mine said, hey, this CFO Act thing is happening in the federal government. And they have these big audits. And there's a lot of controls and compliance test work. And I like that. I like controls. I like compliance. I'm a better writer than I am a numbers type of person. So I thought that would be interesting. And so I jumped into the federal space. I was at the Commerce OIG in 1996. And this is when all the CFO Act work was just starting. So I was, mid-20s, and I was in charge of the Department of Commerce financial statement audit. I was doing the Patent and Trademark Office financial statement audit. I was also a COTAR, that was the precursor to a COR. I was contracting officer, technical representative. And I was a young man, and I was still learning. So it was a really, really, really good experience. I was a customer also.
Right.
Okay. I was sitting on technical evaluation teams. And we ended up contracting all of the work out. So I stopped doing the actual work, and I just became full-time COTAR and also some performance audits. But I still wanted to learn. I was still a young man that wanted to grow more and do the work rather than oversee it. So I was about to go to Andersen, Arthur Andersen, which is no longer here. And I was at an engagement party, and the managing partner of KPMG was there. And I said, hey, I'm thinking to go to Arthur Andersen. He said, no, come to KPMG. I think 2 days later in the evening, I'm interviewing at KPMG at night. And I think that night I got the offer. And KPMG's federal at that time was smaller than RMA Associates. It was a small and growing organization. So I went there for 10 years. And let me just step back and say, being at Commerce IG in the mid-90s, I was at the right place at the right time. From 1998 to 2008, I was at KPMG. And again, I was at the right place at the right time after the Enron thing happened and WorldCom and all that fraud. I became one of the US representatives for audit methodology. I went on a rotation up to New York, and I learned a lot in those 2 years where I was on that rotation about audit methodology. I helped develop KPMG's audit methodology and also train the US firm and also the member firms throughout the world that were doing public company audits on the new audit methodology. Came back to the federal practice after the rotation. I felt like I checked all the boxes. I wanted to be a partner, but there was going to be a couple more years that I had to do it there. So I got a really, really good offer at Deloitte, which was too good to be true. I went there for a cup of coffee. That didn't work out. And my next job was, as I said earlier, I got these two contracts and started RMA Associates. So I was at the right place at the right time a couple times during my career. And then this company took off from there.
Can you talk a little bit about your own personal and professional development? I know you hold a lot of certifications, so you've got, without question, the technical acumen, but you mentioned also, and we've mentioned it, that you are an endurance athlete, and I think you're still a fairly active athlete as well today. Can you talk about the importance of that and kind of having the balance of that in your life as a company leader?
Sure, yeah. So every morning I get up and I either run or swim during the week. And on the weekends, I run, swim, bike maybe sometimes, and also play golf. Sometimes I play tennis at night. The exercise helps me stay calm because the work itself is so hectic. Sometimes I get up during the morning, I'll get bombarded with emails and there's just a lot going on. So if I can get my head clear through a run, I know you're a runner or a swim or something like that, it helps me balance out throughout the day. As far as me personally, I always had this determination and very consistent in my approach to work. However, I was a little rough at the beginning. So I tell people, I say there's 3 things you have to do to be successful. 1 is show up. So I did that. I always did that. 4 things. 1 is show up. 2 is try your hardest. I certainly did that. 3 is learn from your mistakes. I didn't always do that. And 4 is get along with people. I didn't always do that. So the learning from your mistakes and getting along with people has come more so in the last 15 years, like 10 times more than the first 15 years of my career. And being in this position, you have to learn from your mistakes, and you definitely have to get along with people. I was a little bit of a hard charger when I was at say KPMG. I wanted to get stuff done, and sometimes I would get stuff done. If you wanted something done, I would get it done. But sometimes I would leave awake, as I was getting stuff done. So now I've learned to, hey, sometimes it's more important. You want to get the work done, but you also have to make sure that your team is with you.
Right.
And your team wants to be with you, and you can't do it by yourself. I can't do it by myself. So I need to make sure that I'm getting along with people. If I make a mistake, I acknowledge it, I address it, I take corrective action, and then the team will ideally run through a brick wall for the leader, if the leader's good.
Yeah. So that's where I was going next is how does that influence the company culture at RMA, the culture you're trying to develop there? And can you talk a little bit about the 20 square foot rule that you have?
Well, the company culture, I think, is just for us to be human and recognize that we're working with other humans, and humans have needs. So this morning I got a text from a senior leader in our firm, and his wife just had a baby this morning, and she was supposed to have the baby 2 weeks from now, but she went in early, and he said, "Hey, I'm at the hospital." So we are sending him a gift, him and his wife and his other child, and we are going to be there for him, whatever he needs, whatever his wife needs. People have needs that I think sometimes employers maybe don't address as well as we could. And so our culture is we look at every person as a human being, and we alter our approach to fit the needs of that particular person, whether it's an employee or a client, or anyone else for that matter.
I think we have to talk about the talent pipeline issues here. I know that as we said, you're a CPA firm at heart. You've got a number of CPAs on your staff, and a lot of your staff is certified. But there is a talent pipeline issue right now. Are you having challenges hiring CPAs, certified professionals in accounting right now, or have you found a way to navigate that talent management issue?
It's gotten a lot better, actually, for us. During COVID, it was tough, but now it seems like it could be we got a new recruiter, a lead recruiter who's doing a very good job. But as a whole, I think it's gotten much better than it was two years ago. So we're not having any major issues. And the 20 square feet, I think it's an event happens, how you respond to that event influences the outcome. So the equation is O equals E plus R. So the 20 square feet is, I have 20 square feet around me that I'm responsible for. And so that means I have to, and everything else I can't control, I believe. I think this is the theory. But what I can control is how I respond to an event. And if I don't take a deep breath and think about it and just react instead of responding, I may not get the outcome that I want, right? So this is something that we trained in our company culture. We did a lot of training on not reacting and responding, knowing what the outcome is that you want to get. And I think that helps a lot of people react immediately. Something happens, they react, then they get a bad outcome. An outcome they don't want. So we had this whole training on the 20 square feet that you're responsible for and how to manage that.
Yeah, we hear that from a lot of business leaders also, that you can't prevent all bad things from happening. Things are going to happen, right? And so it's not really what happens that's important, but it's your response to what happens. That's what's most important.
Right.
So last question, where's RMA going to be 5 years from now when we bring you back and talk to you?
I don't. We may be a mid-sized company by that time. We have several paths that we would. We're several ways that where the company could go. But the most important thing, I think, is that our customers are happy, our people are happy, whether we're big or small or whatever we are, and that we're having fun and we're enjoying what we do. So I think right now we are, and hopefully 5 years from now, it'll be the same thing.
Well, it sounds like a recipe for success.
Thanks.
I'd like to thank today's guest, Reza Mahbod, President of RMA Associates, for his conversation and sharing how he has developed and grown a strong team that goes above and beyond for their clients, as well as his insights on the opportunities and risks that he sees in the federal market. Watch The Business of Defense next month, where we bridge the gap between the boardroom and the battlefield and between the flight line and the bottom line to advance the mission of national security. Visit sdfm.org to learn more about our defense financial management community, register for upcoming educational events, professional development opportunities, and our Certified Defense Financial Manager certification program. I'm Rich Brady, CEO of the Society of Defense Financial Management. You are listening to the Federal News Network. For more on this discussion, visit federalnewsnetwork.com and search SDFM. Thank you.